Well, let's go to Stan Deyo right now. I want to talk to him about earthquakes. As I said, he was on back in April talking to Alex Jones. Stan Deyo has held above top secret clearance. He's worked undercover for the FBI. He's part of an exclusive black project that was specializing in development of flying saucer technology. He has a very diverse background. He's interested and knowledgeable about computer programming, marine architecture, advanced propulsion engineering, biblical studies, and earthquake forecasting. Stan Deyo, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the invite, David. Are you a native Texan?
No, I'm not. I'm actually spent most of my life in North Carolina.
That's sad, but good to see you there anyway.
Yeah, I'm a recent transplant.
Good stuff. Yeah, earthquakes. There are a lot of changes going on in the planet. They're a little bit. I don't know, schizophrenic, I think would be the word I want to use, because they seem to ramp up and then they back off and jump to another place. I'm looking at the map of the earthquakes today on USGS, and we're seeing, as we have been for probably 3 or 4 weeks now, some significant quakes, 4 plus, 4.5 plus over in Greece, Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and up in Iceland. Of course, you know about that under the volcanoes up there. And then in another place down close to the South Pole off the tip of South America. These indicate to me that the Atlantic side of things is relieving stress in a big way. I'm still not sure what's going to happen up at the Bardarbung volcano in Iceland. All the evidence we've got does show that there's quite a bit of earthquake activity deep underneath, which means it still hasn't approached the surface yet, even though, people are saying to watch out when you fly over there and that kind of stuff. So it's the one in San Francisco, that area of the quakes there, that is a little bit unusual, as you know. In that area there, gosh, it's been like 1.5 million years or more since the Franklin Fault was active. It's not even the one that caused the great, 1900 and some odd earthquake there.
Oh, it's a different fault. Okay, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And well,
so that's San Andreas, or?
No, San Andreas will probably trigger things in that area should it have a large quake. And certainly north of there, in off the coast of Oregon and Washington State, there's a series of plate fractures there in the Juan de Fuca plate. It's in 2 main pieces, and the bottom part of it just touches Northern California, just right above where this earthquake occurred. Now, if the Juan de Fuca plate does release, and it's overdue, probably 6 years overdue now. They figured that it would do within 56 years, back in the IGY year 1958. If you look at all the other areas around the Great Ring of Fire in the Pacific that were under stress like that, they've all released their Richter 8s and 9s. This is the only holdout on the whole Pacific Ring of Fire, or Arc of Fire as it's now called. Wow. Now, if that goes, it'll be a 9.2 or 3 plus earthquake.
Wow,
and that will shake the dickens out of the West Coast, and it'll trigger Franklin, it'll trigger, San Andreas, and there's probably about 15 other parallel faults it'll trigger as well.
Wow, that's huge, because as everybody knows, these Richter scale measurements are exponential. So there's a huge difference between a 6 and a 7, and between what they just had was a 6 in San Francisco. You're talking about a 9. What is that? 1,000 times? Is that?
That's about right. Yeah. Yeah.
Man, that's amazing.
That would jar your teeth a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you're talking about some activity in the Atlantic. Now, there was also an article that I was reading from last Thursday. Michael Snyder was talking about the New Madrid Fault that runs through central United States, through Illinois, Indiana, Missouri, Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Mississippi, he says. What do you know about that?
Oh, fair amount, actually. On our website there, under the show images page, and your producer, we talked about this earlier, you can link into that and look at a number of maps and images. I've got even some stereo 3D things related to the New Madrid Fault. It is a peculiar kind of fault system. It's like little rectangular honeycombs underneath there. It is a failed attempt to to form a ridge like occurred in the middle of the Atlantic. And as such, it had dynamic pressures from several sides. And so it's a very kind of unpredictable type of fault. We know that every 175 to 180 years we get a major release there, and certainly we're seeing signs at this time. Not only will it release in the southern Missouri, Tennessee area, it will probably release in a fault connecting through Arkansas all the way over to Oklahoma City.
Wow.
And this is still up for conjecture, but on our website, on the Show Images page, where I talk about these kind of things, I do have a map showing the safe zone, if you wish, of earthquakes that will occur in Canada and the United States all the way down to Central America. Now, it's called the Central Stable Region, a shield. And there's a black line. If you go down, let's see. Let me tell you where it is. It's on the Show Images page down, fifth row down on the right, and it's a black and white image.
And again, your website is standeyo.com. That's standeyo.com, where people can see these images and see what you've mapped out here.
And that's right. They just click the button next to the microphone that says Show Images and go down the fifth row and on the right. Now, this tells us it's a very rare piece of graphic data I got on this, but where there's a black line that comes down between the west coast of the United States and goes on the other side of the Rockies and down into central Texas, down around where you are, and around and up into Tennessee to the bottom of the New Madrid fault line, then all the way up into the Appalachians and out. Now, that black line, outside of that black line toward the oceans everywhere, is where we have instabilities in the Earth's crust should a major earthquake series start. The Colorado Plateau is exempt from that. It's also within a little shielded area. But other than that, on that map, you will see that, Mexico, Arizona, California, Washington, Idaho, Oregon, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi, all along the East Coast and the South Coast and the West Coast are at risk for major earthquake activity should that start soon. On that same page, you can see historically where earthquakes are occurring across the United States. And where fracking has been occurring. I've got quite a detailed set of data on the New Madrid thing as well. Its own site there.
Now, you just mentioned fracking. We've had a lot of earthquakes where people are, in Texas, there's been a rapid increase in earthquakes that believe is due to fracking. Do you share that belief?
Well, if you look at the fracking map I've got, we see all the little green dots on it there. That's to the left of that one we were just looking at. And it shows a huge concentration of them in the southeast portion of Texas, from the toe of Texas all the way across up into Louisiana and part of Mississippi.
So there's a high correlation to where they're fracking and where these rapid earthquakes are happening. Is that correct?
That's right. That's right. Excuse me. Let me put that off.
Go ahead and get that.
Yeah.
And
all right.
And also, when we were talking about this earlier, we were talking about the fact that the U.S. Geological Service could see the effects of drought from their satellites across the western United States. So we'll be right back. We're going to continue talking about what's going on with this.
Alex Jones here with a message to fellow freedom lovers. The prognosis for the entire planetary economic system runs from bad to worse. The globalist model is to shut down societies and starve patriots out until they acquiesce to the global takeover. That's why we've assembled the most vital and important preparedness items at InfoWarsShop.com. These are items that I did research on, that I personally use. You've got the life straw, so you can turn fetid water into safe water anywhere you go. The K-Tor hand crank generator to charge up key equipment during power outages or out in the field. Strategic Relocation, 3rd edition by Joel Skousen. When Disaster Strikes by Matthew Stein. ThyroSafe, used by Homeland Security to protect yourself during any radiological event. Hand crank shortwave AM/FM radios. Everything that we've researched and found to be the best is available at InfoWarsShop.com, and your purchase makes our InfoWar possible. We're getting prepared. Are you? InfoWarsShop.com.
I'm talking talking to Stan Deyo of standeyo.com. That's STANDEYO.com. I mentioned that because you can go to his website, and as we've been talking here about his website and showing it for the people who are watching this, you can see some very detailed graphical data showing where these fault lines are. Many people think this is something that really only affects California or San Francisco in the United States, or maybe it affects Pacific Islands where if they have an earthquake off the coast, they have to worry about tsunamis coming in. We have all those problems here as well, and there are some faults within the United States that maybe you're not aware of that are long overdue for some kind of activity. But just before we went to a commercial break, Stan had brought up fracking, and I want to go over that a little bit more with him because he's got a chart on his site that shows a pretty high correlation between fracking activity and earthquakes in Oklahoma, Texas, other places. We know that there's been a massive amount of water lost in the western United States due to drought. As a matter of fact, it's so much that it's the equivalent to about 4 inches of water covering the entire western half of the United States that is basically missing now due to this drought of epic proportions. They determined that by looking at the ground sinking because it doesn't have the changes in the height of the ground actually rising because the lack of presence of the water, which would normally take it down. So they were able to measure a 4 millimeter difference in the height of the ground and basically extrapolate from that the amount of water that was missing. Stan, let's talk about the correlation between changes in groundwater level. It's not just the plates that are building up tension, but it's also things that might be naturally occurring or things that we are doing that are man-made that are changing the groundwater and affecting earthquakes.
Well, certainly, depending upon the formation underneath, say, California, where the water has been stored, it takes maybe 100 years to recharge some of those aquifers down there. And if you use it up quickly with agriculture, like in the San Joaquin Valley, you might find that that the emptiness doesn't go away real quickly. It doesn't fill up again. And this makes a mechanical instability with the weight of water that's normally above it, and with human activity there. Down in Lake Taupo in the North Island of New Zealand is another situation where water level in a lake is very important because it holds down the lid on a huge caldera as big as Yellowstone. And right now, of course, the water is warm and there's steam coming up on the shore occasionally. If that one goes, it will be probably because the weight of the water has been reduced. They've been using geothermal sources, and with the drought hitting all over the world, all these areas are subject to danger. In California, particularly, I think that what's going to happen there is that because the underground water storage is not like a flat level thing, it has like waves in it underneath in the sedimentary formations that have been kind of squeezed together. We might see the evidence of California separating into small islands as this progresses over the years. It could happen suddenly, but it may also happen over a period of a decade or two if we don't get rain in there to recharge. And as I said, it takes about 100 years to recharge the main aquifers. Wow. So it's a situation that's not going to go away. It's not good.
That's very interesting. Now, you were also talking about fracking, and I had read in the break just before you came on from Michael Snyder's article where he's talking about these holes that were opening up on Mount Baldy, which is near the New Madrid fault. Do you think that's something that they don't really know what's going on there? There's speculation about that. Do you think that's related somehow to changes in water levels, or do you think that's something to do with plates?
It's to do, I think, primarily with the same phenomenon that's causing a lot of the sinkholes all around the world, not just in the United States. There was a down near, I guess, Sonora in Mexico, just part of the Baja. There was a 12-mile long fissure that opened up all of a sudden. It's not deep, but it cracked. for 12 miles. Now that's very close to, it's just south of the Salton Sea area in Southern California, which is a very thin part of the plate. Now,
hang on. We got to go to break, Stan. We want to get that information right after we come back from break. We'll continue on with that. Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight, and I have on the line with me Stan Deyo of standeyo.com. It's an excellent site with information about earthquakes. And, of course, there's been a lot of information about a lot of earthquakes happened just yesterday. We had a 6.9 in Peru as well as a 6.1 in San Francisco. And, of course, we see there's seismic activity that they're warning about in Iceland. We're talking about where your risks are, and we're going to talk to Stan about what you can do. The people in San Francisco only got a 10-second warning, so we want to give you a little bit more of a warning, give you an idea of what to expect in the aftermath of an earthquake. How can you prepare for it? But before we do, I want to tell you that this hour of the Alex Jones Show is brought to you by AccuPower. It's a new product that we have at InfoWars Life. It's a new eye super formula, nutraceutical. It's available in limited batch supplies only. We just got a new batch in, the first batch in, just a few days ago. Already half of it is gone. It's going to take another 6 to 8 weeks before we get our next batch. This is based on the same regenerative principles as DNA Force, but it's at a more affordable price, targeting the nutrients that you need to replenish the cells in your eye. And, of course, those go through and need to be replaced very rapidly. It's the cause of many diseases, a contributing cause to things like macular degeneration. AccuPower focuses on assisting the natural function of healthy eyes nutritionally, not through surgery, not through harsh pharmaceutical drugs. And that's available at Infowars.com/eyes or InfoWarsShop.com, where you'll find the other products that support our operation. Now, going back to Stan Deyo. Stan, just before we went to a commercial break, you were talking about the proliferation of sinkholes, not just in America, as we were talking about at the New Madrid fault. There's a lot of holes that are forming there in a very major fault that's not in California. It's kind of in the central part of the United States. But you were talking about what's happening throughout the world, especially in Mexico. And we had to go to a commercial break. Go ahead and continue with that.
Okay, well, I've been working for a number of years with a number of other people who have also been studying this. It's known as the expanding Earth theory or hypothesis. And under this concept, a few thousand years ago, the Earth was 25% smaller, or 20% smaller than it is now, and in diameter. And it expanded, and we think that it occurred somewhere around 2300 to 2100 BC. That's what caused Pangea to break up. Now, this is in direct contrast to what they teach in the universities. I'll tell you that right now. There's a lot of controversy over this, but it did occur. I'm positive of this. And if you see my hands here, what happens, the Earth expands like this. It stretches the thin mantle where we live on top of it. And when that stretching is like blowing up a balloon. It makes things get bigger in all directions. Now, a lot of the sinkholes, I'd say 85–90% of them, are due to water intrusion underneath structures or underneath the surface of the ground, and they make round holes rather than jagged, long tears of that kind. As a general rule, they are round. What happens, I'm pretty sure, is that the expansion of the Earth is stretching gas pipes, water pipes, power lines, stuff underground, and they are starting to leak. And the leak, of course, creates the moisture in there and reduces the pressure, sideways pressure on the dirt grains there, and it collapses in a uniform circular hole. Now, to me, this is a sign that we're experiencing a planetary expansion, a very slight one, but we're starting to expand as the planet ages. Now, I don't know whether this will increase dramatically or whether it'll just be a small event, but it is large enough to affect us, making these potholes or these sinkholes all over the planet, and now starting to make the tears like near Sonora, where it's 12 miles long. Mm-hmm. I could be wrong. I put that caveat in there, but with everything else that I've studied in the past, this does seem to be where we're headed, and people can expect to see a lot more of these sinkholes in weird places, but usually over water supplies of some sort.
And we have, for people who are watching this video feed right now, we have a picture of a very long crack. Is that the one, guys, that he was just talking about? Yeah, that's the one that you were just talking about, Stan, that we have a picture of up there. A video, the 12-mile stretch, I think you said. Now, the other thing that's
like 20 kilometers, but that's 12 miles. I'm pretty sure is what it was. Anyway, go on.
The other thing, of course, that you had referred to briefly was the fact that as we see these plates, if they don't have a constant earthquake, as we see in San Francisco and other places like Wellington, New Zealand, places that are near fault lines, they like to see little tiny earthquakes going on all the time. There's a constant movement between these plates. The problem arises, of course, when you don't get that or when you have a lot of tension that is built up. So talk to us about the places that we've got a lot of tension built up. Of course, in the New Madrid fault, they say that it's been 200 years since we've had a major earthquake there, and that's the one that runs through the central United States. And they just had in May the federal government simulating the effect of an earthquake that was so massive that it killed 100,000 Midwesterners instantly and forced another 7 million people out of their homes. I mean, how can people prepare for this type of thing, and where are the danger areas in the United States? Maybe take that first, then we can talk about the preparation.
All right. The danger areas certainly are along the New Madrid. And as I said earlier in the last segment, there's a fault connecting the New Madrid to the west through Arkansas and up into Oklahoma City area. And they're doing all this fracking there. And I'm not sure whether this is fracking for, gas, water, etc., whatever they're fracking for, or is it possibly a government effort through private corporations to make small earthquakes relieve pressure in Oklahoma City and between there and New Madrid. I know they did this when I was in Australia down in Perth. There was about a 7.8 Richter earthquake building up just north of Perth, and it would have taken down 3/4 of the buildings of the city had it released. So there were very quietly teams moved in that went through the outback there up north of Perth, detonating TNT at certain places along the tributary fault lines to make small earthquakes to relieve the pressure so the big one didn't occur, and it did not.
So it may be a form of geoengineering.
It may be. Yeah. It may well be. And so we may be complaining, when we shouldn't be. I don't know. That's probably attributing a lot of kindness to the government that may not be there. But anyway.
Incompetence.
Okay. In other places, the West Coast, Northwest Coast, Oregon, Washington State, those are going to be areas that could even see tsunamis when that Richter 9 releases. And it will release. It's just we don't know exactly when. It's overdue now. In Eureka, north of San Francisco, in San Francisco itself, we're going to see more earthquakes there as the period of time intensifies. New Zealand, you mentioned that. I've been getting emails from people down there, one from a Maori lady, the Maori Indians that live there, and she was telling me that she'd had a dream vision of magma flowing from the center of North Island down toward her at Wellington, again, that being Lake Taupo, and that region is under a huge amount of stress. Whenever that went off back in 87 AD, the last time, it made dust go up into the northern hemisphere so heavy that the Chinese astronomers recorded 3 days of darkness from it, not knowing what caused it. So that's another area people in New Zealand are pretty much aware of that. We've covered it. I've been down and visited Holly and I with the IGNS down there, and did enough shame on the radio of their government that they started funding them money to start monitoring temperatures and pressures there to warn people and try to save as much of North Island as they can when it hits. So there. Let's see, the Middle East, of course, Iran, Iraq area into the Mediterranean, that's going to be unstable for some time. So in the United States, New Madrid, Yellowstone area, and the northwest coast along and down into California, down to Baja, all those are areas that are likely to suffer some severe earthquake damage. As I said to you before, if you look at the plots of earthquakes I've got on my show images page, you'll see one that shows a plot of earthquakes for the last 40, 50, 60 years in the United States. And you'll see kind of a clean zone, up above Texas. And that clean zone stops at the east side of the Rockies. On your map, it would be like that if you're looking at me on TV, be the east side of the Rockies. And those areas are fairly stable, but outside that, it's anybody's game. Now, you can do a lot of things to help you prepare for that. On our website, standeo.com, at the very top left-hand corner in a yellow box, it says free prep info, and next to that it says nuclear, it says NBC, but it means nuclear, biological, and chemical preparation. And next to that, threat watches. If you click on, say, the first one, prep info, that will immediately tell you some things that you need to do for food storage, water treatment. It takes you to sites, that you can just click on that they supply these various things. And also on that page, you'll see Dare to Prepare, the cover of Holly's book, which is, I think, 632 pages long. And it's kind of the Bible of emergency preparation. I mean, even first responder schools use it to teach their first responders. If you have time, get that book and read the sections that are pertinent to your area, for earthquake or tsunami or volcano or tornado, lightning strike, all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. There's about 70 different things that she prepares you for, what you need for that. Medicine, food, water, and
of course, many of the things that you would do for a natural disaster are the same sorts of things that you would do to prepare for a nuclear, biological, or chemical attack. You need to get, bandages, beans, and bullets, as they say. The types of things. Medical care, store food and water, or the ability to purify your water, and then, of course, a means of defense if and when society breaks down.
NBC attacks they got some curly edges to them, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, if you get the EMP pulse from it, it'll wipe out your electronics, your computers, and communication, and you'll be without contact to the outside world. If it's a dirty bomb, it pollutes your area, then there are things you need to do to mitigate that. She even, Holly's looked at this, and there's a way that you can actually walk out from under the fallout cloud, because it goes up so high that you have several hours to walk away from the direction the wind is blowing it to get out of the fallout. If you're going to weather the fallout, she's got a section in there to tell you about how to build an in-home shelter with dirt or with concrete, steel, whatever, mm-hmm. In your home. And it's not like a major construction thing. You pile up boxes of this stuff, get boxes, put sand in it and that kind of stuff, and build yourself, especially in a basement, a cubby for 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, until the radiation dies down. That's if you're right under the anvil, the cloud that drops the stuff. Mm-hmm. If you're going to weather it in situ. But they're just practical things, but they're different than just normal preparation for weather events. You've also got to prepare for people looting, crazy people. Mm-hmm. So that means bullets, as you said. And then food, and you need, a lot of people forget that they need to have water down there, potable water, to eat their freeze-dried foods and things, because those things are dry, and you need the water. Yeah, little things like that, and of course that's all there on those pages, and then in printed form, really in great detail, is the Dare to Prepare book, and we have sold tens of thousands of those things. They fly out the shelf, so it's not a minor work. It is a serious work that helps you think your prep needs through, whether you need medicine or you got children you need to communicate with, or meeting places, weapons, all kinds of stuff.
And again, they can find that at your website, which is standeo.com. That's DEYO, standeo.com. And they can also see the different maps that you've got there showing where the highest risks are for different types of natural disasters, not just earthquakes, but other types of natural disasters as well. Now, I looked on your bio here, and I thought it was a bit interesting that you worked on a Tesla-based energy system that says similar to Dr. Henry Moray's. Is that anything you want to talk about in terms of survival? I mean, what do we do in terms of a longer-term situation if we want to have some power, or something that is what can we do in terms of an off-the-grid scenario to get ourselves a little bit more independent, to take care of ourselves, because that's one of the most fragile things that we have, of course, is the grid and the food supply chain that we have in this country. The more sophisticated the chain of supply, the more sophisticated the chain of energy delivery, the more vulnerable it is.
Absolutely. We should have decentralized power so that every home produces its own, ideally, but that's not the way the controllers want it, sadly. You can't make money doing it that way,
That's right.
not as much.
Right.
And you can't control the people by cutting off the power when you want to at your discretion. Now, to prepare for this or to mitigate for it, there are a number of free, quote unquote, free energy systems that have been out there. Joseph Newman has one. I've not been able to reproduce that, but it's rather bulky. What I've been looking at is what Dr. Murray did, and that was to stretch an antenna about 85 feet long, insulated, and tap it at about the 1/4 length mark with an antenna wire or a connector wire that's insulated coming down into a couple of boxes that use Tesla step-down coils. The trick is that he didn't know where he was getting the energy from. He actually did it and was able to run it for 159 hours in a locked box, and a sheriff and a judge and everybody watched it. There's no hocus pocus about it, and they could take him anywhere out there near a stream out in the country, and he could drive down the 16-foot deep copper stake for his ground and near the river where it was good conduction, hook that to the bottom part of his boxes and then the antenna part to the top, and he was drawing 10 kilowatts of power for 159 hours until they decided to shut it off.
Wow, that's significant, because if you're looking at a solar power for your home, I mean, 10K is that would be a really large solar system.
Well, here's the beauty of his. He didn't need batteries. This worked day and night.
Yeah.
The only difference in the power he received at night, it dropped down about 25%. Well, duh, you're going to be sleeping anyway. But the reason that he couldn't figure it, well, he didn't know about the details of the solar wind, the particles that come from the sun and hit our upper atmosphere, the charged upper atmosphere, and they vibrate the upper atmosphere at various frequencies. But he knew he had to tune his device, his antenna, to a certain range of frequencies, and he would kickstart it by putting a spark on it and wait a minute. Did it start to auto resonate? No. Okay, do it again. He managed to do it several times until the antenna caught and started to self-resonate, to build up charge on it. And once it had a charged envelope around it, the vibrations on the upper atmosphere and the ionosphere from the solar wind, we're talking millions of cycles, that vibration passed down as squeezes on his charged envelope on the antenna, which produced voltage, which he trapped a little arc gap inside his device and then protected it so it couldn't go back out. So it had a high voltage diode that he made in those days. It was rather primitive, but he didn't do it.
That's fascinating.
Yeah,
that's fascinating. We've got to go to a commercial break. I want to pick back up with that right after the break. We'll talk to Stan Deyo at standeyo.com. Talking to Stan Deyo at standeyo.com. That's DEYO. And of course, we had him on for his interest in earthquakes and the information that you can find at his website, showing the places where you're most likely to be affected in the United States by earthquakes, also showing information about what you can do to prepare for earthquake disasters or other natural disasters that maybe your area of the country might be more prone to, or your area of the world. And also what you can do to protect from nuclear, biological, and chemical disasters. If you're not prepared, you're going to wind up going through what we saw at Hurricane Katrina. You'll get the full FEMA treatment. I don't think you want that. So you want to make some preparations in advance for food, for medicine, and for bullets, bandages, beans, and bullets, as they say. Now, we were talking just before the break, and I wanted to continue a little bit with this. He's also very interested in free energy research. He's been to Australia in 1971 to work on these systems. And Stan, do you have some information that you were just talking about, this Tesla system? Do you have some information about that on your website?
Not on that particularly, because I wanted to be sure that it worked and work out the details before I put it out publicly. And I have also been splitting my time with another electricity gatherer, which is a static electricity gatherer, to gather electric charge out of the air when the wind blows through a non-moving type cowling. In fact, if you go to the show images page, second row from the bottom, and it'll be the first image here. It looks like a half of a disc or a plate. It's blue, and you click on that, and it'll take you over to a page that has a picture of what this wind electrical generator that I've been working on, and it uses the Lord Kelvin water drop technique to get the moisture in the air to pass through a grid and generate high voltage charge that you can then run a high voltage generator with, which the Japanese have already built and are testing it. And I don't have up the links to that to their device yet, but I saw it running at several thousand RPM just from static charges. Now this works when there's wind, and with this you would probably need a battery system and inverters. But I'm working on that as well because it's perhaps safer for people to use than the Mori device, which can generate lethal voltages. However, as I get these things developed, I will certainly share them with folks. It's
well, it's fascinating research, and there's a lot of stuff that Tesla did tapping into the electric fields around our Earth, and really fascinating research, much of which, unfortunately, died with him. People have bits and pieces of it. They're trying to reproduce it. Certainly, when you look at solar and you look at wind power, those are very effective technologies, even though they're certainly not the free energy that you're talking about. They're still effective technologies if they're done on a decentralized off-the-grid scenario. They don't make much sense when you try to put them on the grid because they all require storage, and when you're trying to create enough power to power the grid, that creates astronomical requirements for storage, which they just simply don't have the technology for that. But they do work well with decentralized off-the-grid situations, don't they?
They do. And one of the problems with solar is that most of our panels are made in China, and the quality has been really, really poor. We're talking massively poor, and after 15 years, they're starting to not produce as much power at all, maybe drop down 50 to 60% of what they're supposed to. So we're going to have to find a better system, and one that's protected from the environment so it doesn't fog over the glass that covers the silicon cells and things like that. But that's
interesting, yeah. With it going to manufacturing moving to China, the price dropped dramatically, but now we see that drop in quality, of course. Well, thank you so much for joining us. StanDeo.com is the website to get that information.
Renowned author and expert Joel Skousen breaks down the globalist plan to shut down America and stage a new world war.
In one day, America will go from day to night. And if you haven't prepared in advance, there's not enough time to prepare in 24 hours, even if you saw it that early.
Coming to the InfoWar in November is our new documentary film presentation.
Strategic relocation is a systematic way to think strategically in the future about how do I safeguard.
Joel Skousen, Strategic Relocation.
The freeways are going to be crowded, they're going to run out of gasoline, they're going to run out of food, and then they're going to start to go north and south of those freeways.
Joel Skousen is renowned as one of the world's foremost experts in strategic relocation and the securing of your home.
We talk about natural disasters, the health environment, we talk about pollution, the water quality. My personal experience about being in every one of these states.
Government is digging in for the organized, incremental collapse of society and world war.
The U.S. isn't building huge underground bases and bunkers because of some terrorist threat. They know that a massive nuclear attack is coming. They want that attack to come. Most people won't even be ready and won't be able to get out of town when any of these nuclear weapons fall, because there'll be absolute panic.
There is no preparedness without strategy.
What I tell people is that you do have time. Prepare wisely in advance.
This Christmas, give the gift of preparedness. Strategic Relocation, the film, with Joel Skousen and Alex Jones.